You know, this whole AI revolution we're seeing, it's not really about the fancy algorithms. Nope. It's about taming this absolute monster called big data. And today, we're going to break down exactly why that is.
All right, here's the plan. First, we'll look at AI's crazy appetite for data. Then, we're going to get to know this four-headed beast of big data. After that, we'll figure out how to tame it. And finally, we'll connect the dots and see how raw data turns into real, smart decisions.
Data fuels intelligence. You know, this one little sentence from our source material, it's pretty much the core idea of this entire explainer. Seriously, everything, and I mean everything, in AI starts and ends with data.
So you gotta ask, right? Why is AI blowing up right now? I mean, the ideas have been around for decades. What changed? Well, something fundamental shifted, and it completely unlocked AI's potential.
And here's the answer. It's simple, really. For the longest time, AI was basically starving. It was held back by these tiny, limited sets of data. But today we have a literal fire hose of real-time data. Just an endless stream. And, just as important, we finally have the horsepower, the infrastructure, to actually process it all.
Okay, so this explosion of data, it's not all good news. It creates a massive challenge. It's so complex, in fact, that experts came up with a way to think about it. They call it the 4 V's of big data. Let's break them down.
All right, first V, volume. And yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. We're talking about the sheer, mind-boggling amount of data we're collecting. Forget gigabytes, forget even terabytes. We are playing in a whole different ballpark now.
And just look at this. The scale is just insane. A petabyte? That's 1,000 terabytes. Then you get to an exabyte, 1,000 petabytes. And we've been living in what they call the zettabyte era since the 2010s. It's a staggering amount of information, and it's growing faster every single day.
So all that volume, it creates some very real, very expensive headaches. I mean, where do you even put all of it? How do you pay to store and manage it? And maybe the biggest question, who do you find with the skills to handle this kind of scale? It's a huge, huge operational challenge.
Okay, on to the second V, variety. See, it's not just about how much data there is, it's that it comes in all these different, wild, messy forms. We're way beyond just neat little rows and columns in a spreadsheet.
And get this is what's so wild. Over 80% of a typical company's data is what we call unstructured. What's that? It's all the messy stuff. Your emails, your Word docs, pictures, videos, all those social media posts. It's like a chaotic goldmine of information.
And all that variety makes the data incredibly tough to work with, right? Think about it. How do you get a video file to talk to a customer database? How do you even begin to search thousands of legal contracts to find one specific clause? It's just a massive puzzle of integration and analysis.
Which brings us to V number 3, veracity. And this one might be the most important. It boils down to one simple, critical question. Can you actually trust your data? I mean, is it accurate? Is it complete? Or is it, well, just plain wrong?
Because look, if your data is riddled with errors, if it's inconsistent, your AI is going to learn all the wrong lessons. It's that classic saying you've probably heard, garbage in, garbage out. It doesn't matter how fancy your algorithm is. If you feed it junk, you're going to get junk results, period.
And that brings us to our final V, velocity. The thing about big data is, it never sits still. It's not a lake, it's a raging river. Data is being created, updated, and zipping around at unbelievable speeds. And to get any real value, you have to be able to analyze it as it flows, in real time.
And that requires some serious infrastructure that can keep up with the pace. You need systems that can handle these massive, high-speed streams of data without breaking a sweat. And honestly, it pushes the technology and the people who have to manage it to their absolute breaking point.
So, there you have it. This four-headed data beast. Volume, variety, veracity, and velocity. The big question is, how on earth do you tame it? Well, the answer isn't a single magic bullet. It's a set of really important disciplines for wrangling all that chaos. First things first, it all starts with something called data governance. The easiest way to think about this, it's the official rulebook. It's the set of policies and standards that says, here's how we handle our data, how it's stored, who can access it, how it's secured. It's the high-level game plan.
But, you know, a rulebook is pretty useless if there's no referee on the field to enforce the rules, right? That's where data stewards come in. They're the people on the ground, blowing the whistle and making sure everyone is actually following the game plan that governance laid out.
Then, of course, you've got data security. if governance is the rulebook and stewards are the refs, security pros are the guards at the gate. They're the ones using things like encryption and access controls to protect this incredibly valuable asset from being stolen or corrupted.
And last but absolutely not least, we have data quality management. Think of these folks as the tireless fact checkers. Their entire job is to constantly clean, validate, and polish the data. They're making sure it's accurate, consistent, and trustworthy. Remember that whole veracity problem? This is how you tackle it head on.
Okay, so let's get to the payoff. We've got governance, stewardship, security, and quality. How does all this hard work actually come together to power amazing AI?
Well, the main takeaway is this, and it really couldn't be simpler. Your AI is only as good as the data it's built on. Think of it like a house. If you build on a weak, cracked, messy foundation, the whole thing is going to come crashing down. You can't have successful AI without successful big data management. They're two sides of the same coin.
And this is the journey. This is the ultimate goal. When you tame that data beast, you start climbing this value pyramid. You start with just raw, chaotic data, but then you organize it and give it context, and poof, it becomes information. Then you apply that information and see patterns, and now you've got knowledge. You pull all that knowledge together and you get true understanding. And at the very top, that's wisdom. That's the actionable insight that lets you make those smart, effective, game-changing AI decisions.
So, as we wrap this up, the question you should be asking isn't just, hey, what can AI do for us? The real question, the one that actually matters, is our data ready for AI? Because if it's not, you're not building the future. You're just building on sand.